Welcome to the It's Never Too Late show. I'm Marjorie Adams Fiore, your guest host for today's show. And today we're mixing things up a little bit, and I'll be interviewing Suzanne Oshima. Suzanne's a life and love transformational coach at Your Next Amazing Story. And today we're talking about how to make it a great first date. But before we do that, Suzanne, I'd love for you to share with the audience who you serve and why.
Sure. Thanks, Marjorie. I'm so excited to have you turn the tables on me and interview me. I love doing these types of interviews. So, I help single women transform midlife into their best life and find love again in their next chapter. And the reason why I do this is because number one, I'm a woman in midlife also, but also it always breaks my heart when I hear women in midlife think that, it's too late for me when I know it's not too late for them to find love again. It's just they have to know how to put themselves out there so that they don't waste time on the things that don't work.
Wow, and this is such a big topic because it's kind of like, you're never, you think you're going to be old enough one day to not care what people think, and you think you're going to be old enough one day to not be too afraid to go on a first date, and that day never comes. It doesn't come. And it can be so nerve-wracking, and, especially if a woman hasn't dated in a long time, and you want to put your best foot forward, and you feel like you've got one chance to make a really good first impression, but basic, like when you get together for a first date, should it just be drinks or dinner? What's your opinion?
Well, so before I answer that question, you mentioned something that I want to share with the ladies. You know how you said, like, on a first date, a woman's going to be a little bit nervous, and that's normal. I think I would be more worried if you go on a first date and you're not nervous, because there's always a little bit of excitement. I might meet someone I really like, and I want you to be a little bit nervous. So that's healthy. That's totally healthy, right? So don't try to put that away, because I don't think it ever goes away. But when you first start to put yourself out there and you're starting to plan these first dates with the man and he asks you out, is you always want to make it a short first date. You don't want it to be this long date, a dinner date that could go on for 3 hours. You want a short first date, and whether that's drinks or coffee, something that, like with drinks, let's take drinks. I personally prefer drinks because it could either be one drink, or a drink can turn into drinks and appetizers, or drinks can turn into, if it's going really well, drinks to dinner, right? But if it's not going well, it's just one drink, right? And so it can be, it was great to meet you, but I have to go, right? The problem with dinner, this is why I don't like dinner. I'm going to use myself as an example.
Oh, good. I love those stories.
So one time when I was living in New York, I went on a dinner date with this man, and he was a nice gentleman, but I started to realize early on that we were not a good fit. And during dinner, he was a financial advisor. All he talked about was finances. Finances this, finances that. And I was just like, yes, of course I manage my finances, but do I really want to talk about that on a first date? And we were eating dinner, and he ate so slow, this dinner date went on forever. And I was just like, oh my God, I want to die. I want to die on this
That's
date.
torture. It is torture.
It is. And, I was so bored, and I was just like, I'm never, ever doing a dinner date again. So it taught me a lesson, but it's also how I coach my clients is, if you have some, like, you really feel like you've gotten to know them on the phone, maybe you've done a virtual date and maybe dinner's okay, or, maybe drinks or coffee. I personally don't prefer coffee dates, because when we drink coffee, you're already a little nervous. Coffee just amps you up, right? And gets you all jittery. So I personally don't like coffee dates, but it's a matter of personal preference. And if you're out there saying, well, I don't drink, Suzanne, you don't have to get an alcoholic drink to go have drinks, right? You can just get whatever you want. But it's really up to you. I don't know. What are your feelings, Marjorie? Like coffee or drinks?
I mean, I'm the same thing, and I don't drink anymore, but I do like that environment, and I think that it's kind of like it sets the atmosphere and the ambiance, and it just makes you, it's more excited, and you got ready to go out, and it's just different. I do think coffee's a little different. Coffee's like, oh, I'm going to finish running errands and I'll meet you for coffee. It's a little bit more casual, but I think even with just drinks, like you said, then you have the option of, okay, we're understanding it's drinks, but I love that you said if things are great, it could be extended, maybe an appetizer, maybe dinner, but you have an easy out. But still, regardless of which it is, what do you think a woman can do to kind of still make the best first impression?
Yeah, so, it's, as I mentioned, we're all going to be a little bit nervous on a first date, right? But it's important to really just show up as the best version of yourself. Have the confidence in yourself. And just know that, I'm going to be who I am. I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. And this is what I love about women in midlife is in our 20s and 30s, I think we all tried to be something we weren't at some point in our life. In midlife, we kind of know who we are, right? And we're not going to try and be something we're not. So really stand in that power because you don't want to pretzel yourself into thinking, oh, will he like me better if I say this? Will he like me better if I do this? Right. It's like, have etiquette on a date, but don't try to be something you're not, because then you'll have to keep up that charade, right? Months down the road. Yeah. And who wants to do that, right? It's be yourself. There's a great quote.
So much easier. Go ahead.
There's a great quote by Oscar Wilde. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's be yourself, everyone else is taken. I love that quote.
I love that one too. And it's so much easier and it's so much more freeing, because who wants to be, it's like when you're on your best behavior when you first start dating, and then it's like when the real person comes out both ways. It's like, you just want that authenticity. But I do like what you said about if you're nervous, because I think it's kind of sweet when, especially when a man's a little nervous, or when he's done something, to really, really prepare. Like there's something endearing about that. And when they're, like you said, they're not all cocky and confident, like, well, there's more people waiting in line if you don't work out. It's more like they got nervous. And I think that's such a sweet, like, emotion.
Yeah. And it's important too. Like, let's not try to pretend we're something that we're not. If you're a little nervous, it's okay to say, hey, I'm just a little nervous because I haven't been on a first date in a while. It's endearing when someone is just real, right?
Right.
And says that.
And then don't order shots. Don't order tequila shots, though, because you just got to be able to manage it.
Oh, well, that's a good point. If you do drinks on a first date, I say 2 drinks max, because you don't want to go to that place where you start to get a little loose-lipped and start saying things that you'll regret later, and like, where did that come from? Right. And then you get a little sloppy. You also want to stay intact on a date. So I say 2 drinks max. Yeah. Even if you can drink a lot, still 2 drinks max.
I was just going to say that. Like, even if your limit's 4, easy. It's like,
yeah, you still want to keep a limit, because I think we all shift a little bit when we drink a little bit more. And I don't know about anybody else, but I've become a lightweight as I've gotten older.
Yeah. But don't you think that, like if somebody's on a dating site, they're serious about finding a relationship. It's not kind of like, oh, a casual guy you saw somewhere and decided to have drinks, which could work too. But don't you think that, like with any other goal or thing that's important, that you really should kind of have an intention for your first date? Like you already covered, you want to be, yourself and authentic and just have proper etiquette. But what should your intention be for the first date?
So that's a really good question, because I find more women do this than men, not to generalize, but I've worked with both men and women. And so I do notice a difference is I tend to see more women tend to get all in their head before the first date. And if he, what I say, looks good on paper, and they think that he's so attractive and they've already had a lot of chemistry on the phone or on a video date, right? Or through emailing and texting, they've already got it in their head sometimes that, oh, I think this could be the one, and they're already thinking way ahead of the game of, oh, I could see myself with him the rest of my life, or doing this with him or doing that with him. And it's so far ahead of the game that they're not staying in the present moment. And so what I always say is go into the first date with the only intention of, well, two things, is to have fun, right? Take the pressure off. Just go have fun. You're meeting someone new. That's it. Number two is your second intention is to see if you really want to see him for a second date. That's as far as I want you to think. I don't want you to think, could this be the one? Because we don't know until you get to know him. And so it's important to just, do I like him enough to see him again? That's it.
Yeah,
and then
that's great.
It brings you back to the present moment. It takes the pressure off of you, and it takes the pressure off of him too.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you your opinion, because I read one time that even if you're like nervous going into even a work party or someplace where you don't know a lot of people, some kind of social mixer, and the thing I read said, make it a point, tell yourself if you're nervous, to be more interested than interesting. What would you say even on a date?
I love that.
I think that also puts, oh, good. Okay. Tell me your opinion on that.
I love that because it's, when we put all the focus on us, that's what makes us so nervous. But when we put the focus on somebody else, right, then it takes the pressure off of us. Not that we don't want him to be interested in us and be interesting to him, but it just takes the pressure off. And I feel like if we become also curious, I love the word curious, is if you become curious about him and his life, you'll learn so much. Instead of interrogating him or asking him, it's just curiosity. No one gets mad if you're curious about something, right?
Right. And that just made me think, not to put you on the spot, but what if you're a woman who is worried because you feel like you're not that interesting. Like all I've ever been is a stay-at-home mom, and I was married and now I'm divorced, and I'm so afraid he's going to ask me what I do on the weekends and what my hobbies are, what my, that kind of thing. Like what would you say to kind of combat those, monkey things that are going on in your brain?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have actually had private clients tell me that. They would say to me, they go, I had one client that actually said to me, she goes, Suzanne, I'm boring. And I'm like, you're not boring. You're not boring. And so when I dug a little bit deeper, I started to ask her questions about what her interests in, what she's done in the past. And her life was totally interesting, but in her head, she had it that I'm boring, or, I'm not interesting. And so if that is your thought before the first date, is write out all the things that you love to do, that you're passionate about, that you would love to share with somebody. What are some of the things that you want to do in the future? What's on your bucket list? Right?
Good point. Yeah.
Talking about those things. So, I think it's hard sometimes, especially if a woman has always put her kids first, and, and so her life has become her kids, but now they're grown and they're adults and they're out of the house and they're living their life is her identity. She forgets all the great things about her. And so I would just journal, and then she'll come back and she'll go, oh, I'm pretty amazing. or not.
Or
So,
like you said, have a, you know what, this is the time in my life I really want to start traveling, or I would love to XYZ. It's like, as long as you have that, because you can create the second half too. It can be whatever you want. So it doesn't have to be, and maybe that's what somebody wants, is somebody who's ready to just kind of like, they love that you like to read books and sleep in on the weekends and drink coffee and any kind of thing like that. But again, just to own whoever you are, because you don't want to say, I want to go skydiving, if you really don't. It's like,
I know, because then you might feel a little pressure to do that, and that could be a little scary. So yeah, just be real. We all have things that we want to try and do, and so it's okay, even if you haven't tried it or have done it, is to say, I haven't done this, but this is something I would really love to do. Whatever it is, maybe it's something simple like paddle boarding, or like for me, I used to rollerblade a lot in my 20s and 30s, and I haven't rollerbladed in 15 years. I started rollerblading again. I will tell you, it was really funny when I got back on. I used to be really good in my 20s and 30s. When I got back up on rollerblades this time, I had that scary feeling of, oh my God, I need to sit down. But now I've gotten good. In fact, last night I went to a disco oasis up in, Palos Verdes, and it was so much fun. My friend and I had so much fun.
I'm so proud of you. That's amazing.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just one step at a time and getting back up and doing certain things, but you can say what your dreams and passions are in the future too.
But you know what? That reminds me that if we loop back, that's another reason why it's important to be more interested, because maybe he does fly fishing and you're like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to try that. Or it could spark something that you're like, I've never done that. And then you could have a deeper conversation. And because like what you said, that wouldn't even be on my list because I don't know about that. No, seriously, but that's how we expand. It's like you said, just don't make it such a big all or nothing first date. If I don't, I'm going to make it or blow it. It's not like that. It's really just to kind of like get to know somebody better, that you feel like maybe you had a connection with. But, I love these tips. Is there anything else that you could tell us to kind of help not make a first date so nerve-wracking?
Yeah, I think it's so important for women to realize that, take the pressure off of yourself and to remember not everybody is for everybody. And so it's okay though, because you're going to like some men, you're not going to like others. It's the same, but don't take it personally. The first date is to try and figure out if you could see yourself going out on a second date. It's the same for him too. But try, and I know this is hard, not to take it personally, but just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. And as my mom always said, don't put all your eggs in one basket by dating one man at a time. Is date multiple men so that if one drops off and by the roadside, roadkill, it's like, move on. There's another one down the road. Keep moving.
And get a couple of baskets. Get a couple of different baskets if you need to.
Exactly.
Oh, Suzanne, this was a fun interview and a great episode, but I'm sure you've really left your listeners wanting more. And I know that you have a free online masterclass I want to tell everybody about, The Secrets to Meet a Quality Man. Can you just give us a little snippet about what it's about and then tell them how to get registered?
Yeah, so I will say that's the number one question I get asked all the time is, Suzanne, how do I meet a quality man? So this is what I would say. If you're doing online dating and it's not working, don't give up yet. Because I'm going to tell you the number one way to meet a quality man online. I'm also going to share with you the real reason why you're not meeting any quality men online. It will surprise you what I'm going to share with you. And I'm going to share with you how to turn it around. A lot of women are making these two mistakes, and they could easily turn around, but they think there's just no quality men online. That is not true. Plenty of my clients have met quality men online and are in relationships or have gotten married. So it's just, watch this masterclass. If you want to sign up, you can click here on the video. If you're watching the video, if you're listening to the podcast, just go to yournextamazingstory.com.
Oh, thanks everyone for joining us today on It's Never Too Late show. The show's available in both video and podcast format and can be found at the same place. You can register for the masterclass, which is yournextamazingstory.com. Take care.